Hey, I'm in South Africa. This is awesome to drive the all-new Audi A7. Just as a point of reference, I have the existing car, the current model. This is the all-new one that will be coming at the end of 2018. It's a 2019 model. It's on a new platform, even though it looks similar to the current car. It's a little bit wider, the wheelbase is a little bit longer, and the roof actually provides a little bit more headroom than the existing car. Comes standard with LED headlamps. Also, wheel sizes range from 18 to 21 inches. This car is available with 4 different suspensions, even all-wheel steering. We'll get inside, go for a drive, I'll show you what's new on the cockpit and find out if this latest model is better than the current one. Well, first things first, this is a beautiful part of the world. And if you ever get a chance to come to South Africa, take the opportunity, or if you're planning a trip, because it's stunning here. And great roads too to show this car off. Now, Audi looks at the A7 as their sort of sportier sedan, a combination between sportiness and luxury. And they have it set up so you can tailor it to your liking. And a lot of it comes down to the new suspensions that are available. There's 4 of them. You can get the regular springs and shocks, that's the regular version, a sport version of that, which drops the suspension by 10 millimeters. There's also a version of the regular suspension with adaptive shock absorbers to change it from mild to wild, depending on what you want. And on top of that, air suspension, also that's adaptive. If you get the adaptive suspension with the regular springs or the air springs, you can add in as an option rear steering, and we have that set up in this car, and it makes the car feel so much smaller and agile, which really is great if you drive in the city. So the wheels turn opposite to each other when you're going around a tight corner like this. The car just carves through. If you're on the highway at higher speeds, they turn in tandem when you're changing lanes. Under the hood, only one engine to start with because this is the basic A7. I'm sure S and RS7s will be coming, but one gasoline turbocharged 3-liter unit. It has 340 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. Power is not an issue with this car. The 340 horsepower with this car really is a wonderful combination, and it pulls from all speeds. Mid-range passing power is top-notch. So engine is great, 7-speed transmission, of course, all-wheel drive. But the all-wheel drive system is set up now to give more of a rear bias than before. Now, before we get into all the high-tech advancements in this new A7, let's get into the basics. Is it bigger? Yeah, it is slightly larger. They've added 13 millimeters of additional legroom in the back seat, and headroom is greater by 5 millimeters. They sound like small numbers, but when you sit in the back seat, you actually can tell that there's just slightly more room. Trunk space is also big. That's the one great thing about this car, and one of the reasons I chose the A7 is it has a sports car sort of silhouette, and it has the functionality of a utility vehicle when you open up the big hatch. There's 535 liters of trunk space with the back seats up. When you put the back seats down, 1,390 liters of space. Then you move forward, and it is a wow factor when you get into this car and start it up. So you have 2 screens in the center. There's a 10-inch screen above the 8.6-inch screen that's below. The top screen is for things like the navigation, the radio, the phone, and communications. The lower screen is for using the functionality of the car, for changing the seats, for heating the steering wheel. But the nice thing about this system is it has the ability for customization. So the things you use all the time, you can drag the tiles over to the left and have them as quick sets in the left hand of the top screen. And on the bottom, you have a favorites tab. You can put things in there like maybe your home address for navigation, your spouse's phone number, maybe a favorite radio station or a song. Then behind the steering wheel, you have the digital cockpit, which is also customizable. So the idea with this car was to remove clutter and put everything into these screens. The Audi designers here say people are used to using their phones, are used to touching and swiping. That's what they wanted with these screens. There are still hard keys though. The number 1 is the volume knob. Now, there's been a lot of comments about do you need a volume knob and do you not need a volume knob? Audi is adamant that they still have an old analog rotary volume knob because people are used to it and people like it. Is there a pet peeve? Well, I've got two actually. First of all, I'm not sure if this is just for the European market, but there is no power steering adjustment. My car has that. And the belt line or the window line here is higher. So, and there's a bit of a ridge there, and it's not comfortable for putting your arm up and driving like this. You get used to that too, but I do kind of miss that, to be honest with you. Now this car and Audis moving forward will all be what are called mild hybrids. So there's a 48 volt system included in this car with a battery that's just above the rear axle. And the starter is the starter of the engine, and it also acts as a generator and can supply power. So what this is doing is allowing the engine to switch off more often. In stop and go city situations, you can be pulling up to a traffic light and the engine will switch off sooner. Like you're used to when you come to a stop, the engine switches off automatically. It will do it as you're coasting up to a light. And when you're driving at steady sort of highway speeds, the engine will switch off and will drive just on the electric power under 1 minute. But when you add all of these things together, so sailing along at higher speeds with the battery and switching that engine off more often in stop and go situations adds up to 0.7 liters of improved fuel economy. Now, as I mentioned, I have an Audi A7. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, how does it compare to the old car? Well, the first thing you notice when you drive is it's quieter. That's for sure. It's definitely quieter on the inside. And all of the cars that are here have the air suspension and the rear wheel steering. Now, the rear wheel steering is cool. The air suspension isn't for me. I'm sure it's for a typical traditional luxury buyer. It makes the car much smoother. I would probably go for the just springs with the sport suspension or the adaptive version of that. That's what I would choose. Air suspension has a different feel and it's not what I would personally choose. So that's something to consider. But at its core, it's the same basic goodness. It's a wonderful, wonderful car. I love the A7, absolutely adore it. I got one. So this car is a step forward from the old model, but it still has a lot of what made the original A7 such a favorite. They sold over 250,000 of the first car. It still has the same functionality, all wrapped in a sleek, sexy looking sedan. The engine is a strong point. The interior does take a little while to get used to, but it is so much more advanced than we've ever seen from Audi in the past. This car is coming later this year. Look for it just before the end of 2018.